Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Round 1, Season 1. We are here live today in NRRL's 100% Friday division for the Bahrain Grand Prix. This is the opening round of the season. 18 drivers take on the Bahrain International Circuit. I'm your commentator, Jack. It is a pleasure to be here, as always. Joining me in the commentary booth tonight, we have my brother, Lewis. How are you doing? Good evening.
I'm doing good. It should be a very entertaining season opener. Bahrain is well known for delivering most of the time good openers for seasons. Very, very good track, lots of places to pass, so it should make for a very entertaining race.
Completely agree. Now, on this game, the grip around here is quite difficult. The tyre degradation is absolutely massive, so strategy is going to play its course in this race. But before we race, first we must qualify. And we've got 18 drivers, like I mentioned, who will be vying for that critical pole position. Now, we know that last week in the preseason race in Mexico, we had Ryan Brooks, who managed to take the win. Although as I look up and down the grid, I cannot see him here today. So it will be interesting to see who can take advantage of that. We know that Ryan, realistically, probably is the quickest driver. Although we had people up there like McKellar, who's here tonight. People like Dan Lovett and Josh, who are teammates in the Prancing Horse. They're always up there. We've got people like Wiz Jokies, RJ Batten, Meldrum can be very quick over a qualifying lap, Mr. Jabe. And then we have got a few other drivers who will look to sneak in there as well. The first man to set an official lap will be RJ Batten, barring any invalidation. He is now on a lap. So to take us through it, Lewis, take us through a lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix.
RJ Batten, let me go and find him. So you want to, it's very difficult into turn one to pick your braking point. You want to make sure you don't overshoot the corner too much. He's managed to go through the first complex very well. DRS wide open in towards turn four. Again, very easy to maybe mistake your braking point. Don't run wide. Save that for the race. Get through the S's. Nice and neat as he has done there. This seems like a very, very solid lap so far. Nice and smooth. Very easy to spin here. Now, this is a crucial part, I believe. Very, very easy again to maybe brake a little bit too late, run wide, lose some time. He hasn't done that. Again, nice and smooth. Gets on the ERS. He hasn't got much left for the final two straights as he goes uphill now. Getting through it again, nice and tidy lap here. We'll see what sector time he manages to set. So 1063, so it's not too bad. Again, gets on the ERS, doesn't have anything left of it really. That could cost him in this final part of the lap. Comes around the final corner, nice and smooth again. ERS wide open. Or ERS, not wide open, DRS wide open, sorry. It comes across the line at 28.8, so respectable, but I would imagine that lap will get beaten, and it has been by Sean.
A very decent lap there from RJ Batten. Like you say, though, not much battery in that Sauber. And that definitely will have cost him time, as we've got Eltheniel, who went straight on at turn one into the wall and crashed out. We've got a few yellow flags. You'll see that all throughout the session. That is just people letting other drivers through. We've got I Have No Grip, who's just done a 130.0. Obviously not the best lap so far. I'm sure that he will go again with 13 minutes left in this session. Wiz Jokies with a 29.8. Dan Lovett is... not Dan Lovett, Josh is coming into box. Dan Lovett invalidated as we have Finn Joe, who goes to the top of the timesheets. The Mercedes split by a millisecond.
Wow. What is there? We were talking about for RJ Batten. It is very, very difficult around here to charge that ERS because there's really three huge straights. So in that middle sector, I think you've really got to try and charge it as much as possible, but it can lose you time. So RJ Batten, if I'm in his position, I don't think I'd have done that. I think I'd have saved most of it for that back straight here and used it then. But it's a decent lap from him so far, and I'm sure he'll try something else on his next lap. Pole isn't too far out of his grasp at the minute, only 3/10. A very, very close session so far, but I would imagine that those times will come quite drastically down in the
Mr.
next 12
Jabe
minutes.
was very, very sideways out of turn 4 in the Aston Martin. He is continuing with this lap. The Aston Martin driver vying to go to the top of the timesheet so far. 12.5 minutes left in this session. His teammate goes P5 with a 1:29.8, but he was very sideways out of turn 4. Almost looked like I was watching a rally driver rather than a Formula 1 driver. He's made it through well, and he does have a lot of battery left as he comes towards the final double apex corner. Very difficult to hook this up, but he does meet the apex nicely. Again, a little bit of a wobble on the exit, but nothing too major. And he will make a valid lap time. Goes 8th with a 1:30.3. So those laps at the top from the likes of Finn, Sean and RJ Batten do look quite quick. Although we do have some of the big hitters now coming out. Those like Meldrum, Dan Lovett, Josh, as Meldrum only P10 with a 1:32.1. That's not what the McLaren driver would be hoping for. But we do have to look at people like McKellar, Dan Lovett, Josh, who are now on their outlaps that are definitely going to look to go faster.
Absolutely. I was on board with Paul Codd, who was a 10th up in the first sector, but seemingly backed out. So not too short went on there. Finn Joe, half a 10th up in his first sector. I'm on board with him here. Just about to come towards the final sector. He has been the man that has set the pace just barely so far. Another 2/10 up, so this looks very, very strong. It's got a bit more ERS to play with than what RJ Batten did. It's all about where you use it here, though. I think it's a huge gain if you can use it in the correct places. Comes around the final corner. Perfect line, it looks like there. Uses it potentially a little bit too early. DRS comes wide open, and he does go faster. So he improves by almost 2/10 and puts a bit of distance between him and his teammate. But I wouldn't expect that to be the end of the session now. We've still got some of your heavy hitters from the other day divisions, like Dan Lovett, like Josh, like McKellar, all to set laps. Paul Codd as well sets his lap on medium tyres, however, 1:33.5. So I'd expect potentially a mistake there or some kind of collision. So I'm sure he'll improve his lap.
McKellar was purple in the first sector. We know that McKellar has had a massive turn of speed in the other divisions, and as he comes to the middle sector, it's a 107.1 split. That is quick, and he has battery to deploy. He is using it all in the right places, and the Sauber, who has won in F2, who won in F1, is now looking to make it a first pole position. He comes to the line now and just doesn't make it. It's a 29.3 from the Sauber driver. Now over to the two prancing horses. The first across the line will be Josh. Really doesn't have any battery left and is going to use it just to the line. It is going to be a valid lap and goes P3 does Josh with a 28.7. Now over to Dan, who is in the other Scarlet Red Ferrari. He has a lot more battery. The yellow helmet striking under the lights here at the Bahrain International Circuit, and he is looking to put his name in purple at the top of the timesheets. He's used all his deploy very early though, replaces his teammate in third. It's a 28.6 for Dan Lovett. Good lap from the Ferrari driver. He's not far off.
I think he'll be relatively satisfied being in that top 3, top 5 environment. He knows he can win races from around there. And especially at a track like this, it's not like a Monaco or a Hungary where being on pole is ridiculously important. Obviously, it's a nice benefit to have. But with a 57-lap race, pole position, you could argue, means largely nothing in league races around here. Very easy at the start to get a good start and then hop both drivers in front of you into P1. So I'm sure if he's around third, fourth, he'll be very happy with that.
Turn 1 is a very good overtaking zone. There is a long run from pole position to turn 1. Very heavy braking zone. Easy to go down the inside or the outside. so it is a good overtaking spot. It's one of the ones like Mexico where pole position, obviously you're going to be happy if you do take it, but it isn't a given that you will be leading after turn 1.
Absolutely. I think if you're on pole, it almost puts you, I would think, at a disadvantage around here, especially because it's so easy with how turn 1 and 2 is set up, a little bit like Malaysia of old, where the outside of turn 1 very quickly becomes the inside of turn 2. So you can almost be very, very susceptible to being wheel to wheel with P2 and losing the position straight away.
Exactly that, but as we now reach, I believe there's about 8 minutes left of this session, we've got almost a Noah's Ark grid here with the 2 Mercedes leading and then the 2 Ferraris. We know they have been massive rivals in real F1 and potentially in the Friday division of NRRL. We are going to have the same. 2 Silver Arrows lead 2 Prancing Horses. The next man to set a lap out of the top 4 will be Sean. He's on his out lap and is now coming to the final corner. So we will stick with this one. He needs about a 3/10 improvement to gain on his teammate and take 2 provisional pole position. You would imagine everyone at least has another 1 or 2 laps in them. But as Sean crosses the line now to begin his second flying lap, I believe this is for him, into turn 1, nice and neat, meets the apex beautifully. Good traction out of 1 through 2 and 3. It is looking like a good first sector using all of the track limits as he now comes to turn 4. Very easy to run wide out of here, meeting the apex beautifully again. And to the end of the first sector, he is a 10th up. Good improvement from Sean as he now goes in to, I believe, turn 7, that is. Very easy to lose traction on the exit, but he doesn't. And he is absolutely flying on this lap. He just needs to pray. He needs to pray that that Aston gets out the way. And the Aston does get out the way as we look behind now. Wiz Jokies is up on his lap 2, currently sat in P8. But the Mercedes vying for pole position. Here is the Mercedes now towards the end of Sector 2. How much? He's 5/10 up.
Wow.
Is the Mercedes. So this is an incredible lap if he can finish this one. And no doubt will take him to pole position, potentially into the 1:27 27s. The Mercedes working well under the lights. Normally, it doesn't work well in the heat. Well, Sean is setting the timing sheets alight. A 27.8 from Sean. Blitzes his teammate's provisional pole position lap. Now over to Josh, who is on his out lap. This is far from over yet.
And here comes RJ Batten. He was nearly 3/10 up. Stays P5. Not sure what happened in the final sector. I caught the final corner. Not much seemed to be wrong. And now, again, we just get to that part of the session, other than Josh, really, where everyone is saving themselves to those final few minutes. So where they can do their final runs. But that is an astonishing lap from Sean. Great pace from him there. Mercedes having an absolute dream session so far.
Josh in the Ferrari is looking to ruin that though. And as he comes now towards the end of the first sector out of turn 4, how is he faring? He takes a tight line. He is about a 10th up, which is exactly what Sean was up in the first sector. So still time to improve. He goes a little bit wide through there, just misses the apex. That will inevitably lose him time. But now towards a very tricky braking zone, gets it turned in nicely. The Ferrari does seem to be working well under the lights too. Prancing Horse, absolutely flying. Can he get anywhere near the front? Can he beat his teammate? Can he split the Mercedes? Can he go to provisional pole? Riding over the curbs. He is 37 milliseconds up. So he is going to be close, potentially, to challenge Dan Lovett. But is it going to be close enough to try and vie for pole position? He doesn't have much battery left. He's using none into the final corner to try and get as much as possible. Switches it back to hot lap. This is it. To the line for Josh. beats his teammate. It's a 0.2 improvement, goes P3, but Mercedes at the front, sitting pretty.
I think Josh will be a little bit disappointed with that. He would have thought he could do a little bit better. That probably will be his last run as well, as I don't think he's going to have time to get back and get out again. I did think it was a bit of an odd time for him to come out with about 4 minutes left to do his lap. Or does he have enough fuel in the tank maybe to go again? But he seems to be trying to get on with it. And no, he doesn't actually. Doesn't have enough fuel. So that is going to be his session over.
Dan Lovett is now on his final flying lap, and he's over a 10.5 up. The Ferrari driver who have had such success through the Bahrain circuit for many, many years. Charles Leclerc taking pole, Sebastian Vettel taking pole here. Can Dan Lovett etch his name into the history books and become yet another Ferrari driver to take pole and ruin Mercedes' dreams? Baton is up, but does not have any battery left. So he will be struggling come the end of the final sector. The Sauber is working well, and Dan Lovett is now 0.3 up on his lap. RJ Baton doesn't improve. So over to you, Dan Lovett. He's got a bit of traffic in his way, but negotiates it well. 1 corner to go for the Ferrari driver between him and pole position. Sean will not get another lap here, so it's over to Dan. No. Can he take it? He can't. He lost time in the final sector. The Mercedes guaranteed a 1-2 here under the lights, but over now to Finn. Can he dethrone his teammate Sean from pole position? I didn't see the first sector, but as he now goes to the second sector, is he up? He is up! He's up about a 10th and a bit. Now, can he improve in this final sector? He doesn't have much battery. Sean is in the pits. He's playing the mind games, trying to take pole position from the garage. He will be watching his teammates lap with his eyes wide open as Finn now comes to the line, does improve, but cannot take it. Sean for Mercedes is on pole for the Bahrain Grand Prix. It is a Mercedes 1-2 with Finn in second. Then third and fourth, sharing the second row, are the 2 Ferraris. Sharing the third row are both Kick Saubers. Incredible action here in qualifying.
Murray Elliott was 0.2 up on his first sector. Wasn't able to improve in his middle. Sitting P14 at the moment. No batteries. He comes around the final corner. So a lot of drivers seemingly using up their charge before they get to the end of their laps. Can he improve? He can improve only up to P13. VDV 0.3 up in his first sector, just in front of Murray Elliott. How will he manage to go as he comes through the middle sector? Is anyone else on a lap, or is that just... I believe it is just...
I believe Mr. Jabe might be on the lap as well. He seems like he's pushing, so it is now down to the 2 Aston Martins. A second up. That would give him a 28.8. That would put him in P7. But he can still improve through this final sector. He's got a lot of battery to use. Deploys the overtake to the line. DRS opens. VDV Ale, P5. Puts a gap between the Ferraris and the Saubers. Now over to his teammate who is not up. Mr. Jabe will be P11. Incredible lap at the end there from VDV Ale. And that is your lot then. It is 2 Mercedes from 2 Ferraris, Aston Martin, 2 Saubers, a Williams, Haas and Alpine share your top 10. Eltheniel was the only man not to set a lap. It didn't look like Paul Codd or Bruiser got a clean one. Meldrum and BFR Chocky didn't get their final laps in due to retirements. But incredible stuff here in qualifying under the lights. And Sean stands tall from the garage.
I think it's good to see Ali in P5 there, because the top six before he went into it looked very much like a Noah's Ark of Mercedes, Ferrari, Sauber. So to throw in an Aston Martin into that top seven, I think will be very, very entertaining to see, because that could have got quite stale with just everyone kind of bunched up in their teams. So to throw an Aston Martin in there, and especially somebody we haven't seen before, that's going to be very entertaining. And again, somebody we've given a lot of praise to over the past week, and deservedly so. P7 McKellar, we've seen what he can do from around here. If you're Sean or you're Finjo, or Dan or Josh really, you're looking at that and thinking, how many laps is it going to be before I see that Sauber in my rearview mirrors?
I must say, while we talk about McKellar, who has made massive improvements over the last couple of weeks, so has Sean. He took pole position, I think, for both
Absolutely.
races in the F2. He's been performing well in the F1, still looking for his maiden win in Formula One categories. But starting from pole position, there is no better place to start if you want to get your first win. But like we say, it is a long old run down to turn one and a very good overtaking opportunity. Can his teammate challenge him? Can the prancing horse Ferraris try and throw their names in there? What of Vidi Viale? What of Michela? We know that he normally does start sort of around P6, P7, but very quickly makes his way up. So it is going to be a very interesting race to see how everybody fares. 57 laps of the Bahrain Grand Prix coming up. We now have a 5-minute break, so we get a chance to take in our thoughts and see what we think about this. But Lewis, if you are the man on pole position, Sean, you've been on pole position before, but you haven't won a Grand Prix yet. How are you feeling in that cockpit?
I think you've got to focus on that reaction to the start. Get through the start well. Make it to turn one in the lead. The first thing I'm doing is I'm pointing my car to the outside and I'm trying to get that outside line to make sure that you don't have enough time for your teammate to throw it round the outside. Because I personally feel round the outside is a lot easier here in Bahrain than down the inside. We'll have to see how that goes on. As we know, obviously, most of these drivers are in a voice chat together, so that could be something discussed or messaged behind the scenes to each other. How do they approach the start? Especially when we're at the first round of the season, Mercedes are going to be looking to score some solid points for a constructors fight, knowing they have this pace. I think we could see a very, very interesting dynamic between these two. Will whoever is in second potentially try and hold up those in front and act like a bit of a Bottas to a Hamilton? Or are we going to see a Hamilton and Rosberg in 2014? As much as a fan I am of Valtteri Bottas, I know which one I'd rather see.
I've just been informed, and this is completely my mistake. I do apologise to everyone viewing. This isn't a 100% race. This is a 50% race. So there's only 29 laps. So that completely changes the dynamic. Again, I do apologise to the viewers. This is a 50% Grand Prix. I will try and get the stream title changed as soon as possible. My sincerest apologies. But this does really change up the grid now, because only 29 laps to try and overtake everyone. Sean on pole position suddenly does look like more of the favourite.
Yeah, and it does definitely, obviously, we didn't know that. The drivers, I take it, they must have known. If there's a few that didn't, that is definitely going to throw up the mindset of how you approach it differently, as we have discussed, given the difference in length of races that we cover here, that you have to have a different mindset for 100 towards 50. From my own personal experience, I haven't really driven in 100% races too much, but in 50s, at certain races, you just got to get on with it.
Here we go then, 5 red lights ahead of the drivers. They were not held for long, and it's lights out and away we go, and Finn already has got a great start ahead of his teammate. Sean is already going to concede the lead into turn one. Dan Lovett almost going into the back of him there, and there is massive contact in the midfield. Dan Lovett scampered away, but we've got a few cars in the wall, including RJ Batten, Michela, and Josh Murray Elliott also involved. We've got multiple cars in the wall, But on the soft tyres, Finn Joe absolutely escaping at the front. Dan Lovett somehow coming out of that unharmed. Massive crash at the rear though, and 3 drivers expected to be towards the front suddenly are all the way at the back. Impeccable start.
I'm not too shocked that Finn Joe managed to get into the lead when I saw that Sean was on soft tyres, but it just seemed like those tyres did not fire up at the start whatsoever. And Finn Joe, just an absolutely fantastic start on those softs, manages to get the position and is already out of DRS range. Obviously, Sean will be looking to go longer than Finn Joe, but that is an ideal start for the Mercedes.
Exactly that, and already a second
Gabe
clear.
nearly spun. Sorry to interrupt you. A massive snap from Jabe there. He's very, very lucky to keep himself in.
Fastest lap obviously goes to Finn Joe, leading the Grand Prix as we go into lap 2 of 29. And Wiz Jokies is putting pressure on Dan Lovett. Dan is one of 2 cars to be on the hard compound tyres at the start. The other man who was on the hards was his teammate Josh, who is now down in 17th. And with the DRS, Wiz Jokies is really starting to put pressure on him as we've again got more contact at the back. Meldrum involved in that, as was Murray Elliott, RJ Batten and Josh also involved. But we've got massive action in the midfield here. Cars absolutely everywhere vying for the same piece of tarmac.
I can't see. Was McKellar caught up in that at the start? I can't say I saw that he was, but he's fallen back quite a lot. That will be a relief to those guys at the front. Down the main straight, I was watching VDV and Bruiser as VDV managed to get through and up into 9th. So that is, he fell back quite far too. So a very chaotic start here as we have a McLaren who is stopped. He's managed to get it going in the right direction. That's his Meldrum. So a fairly abysmal day for him has gone a little bit worse. Luckily for him, there is still plenty of time.
Wiz Jokies very, very close to the back of Dan Lovett here with the DRS. This surely is going to be an easy move, but Dan Lovett is draining the ERS. Into turn 1 we go. Wiz Jokies elects to take the inside. Dan Lovett on the outside. There is a little bit of contact, but that is all fair in the name of racing. And now towards turn 4 we charge. Wiz Jokies on the outside. Dan Lovett on the inside. They just about make it through together, and they do manage to keep it clean. Wiz Jokies sweeping around the outside. The better grip of the medium tyres, and he does get himself up into the podium places. BFR Chocky, who is also on the softs, is looking to vie for this as Dan Lovett went down the inside again, but just didn't manage to get the car stopped in time. Wiz Jokies with the switchback manages to reclaim the position.
And that was a very audacious move from Dan to try and get that place back from Jokies. I was looking on the run up to turn 3. That was very close for Jockeys, as it looked like he had gone somewhat off track. And obviously with these track limits, they don't play about. So that could have gone very badly wrong for him. But managed to get into P3. But if I'm Dan, I'm still relatively satisfied. Given that you are on the worst tyres for now, you're still keeping pace with those at the top. And at some point, those tyres, I'm sure, will come alive.
Josh is gaining positions in the Ferrari on the hard tyres. Just got past Paul Codd. A lovely sweeping move round the outside. I have no grip. Currently sat in P7. Sets the fastest lap of the race in his chase after Mr. Jabe. Dan Lovett and Wiz Jokies fighting yet again. And here comes the Ferrari driver looking to take back 3rd place. He looks to the inside now. Wiz Jokies takes the outside. Down the inside goes the Ferrari. Both Ferrari powered vehicles. And it is the Haas that wins this battle out for now, as Dan just goes a little bit wide through there. But a great battle developing for the podium, as now the Red Bull of BFR Chocky gets involved on the soft tyres, And you would imagine, looking at the pace of Finn, now 2 seconds clear in the lead of his teammate, the softs are working well initially, will die out very quick, but the Red Bull will be looking to get on with this as quick as he can.
Absolutely. And if you're Dan there, I'm not sure if that's the same strategy I would use. You don't want to burn those hard tires too quickly. There's a reason you're on them. And it could also be that he's trying to fight with on the mediums to try and burn out his tires a little bit earlier, knowing that he will have more life in them. Very interesting to see what the move is there. As you say, Chocky right on the back of this. And it looks like we're going to see 3 different teams all vying for one spot on the podium here, as the Mercedes seems to have just ran off.
Josh and Murray Elliott battling very hard. Murray does have front wing damage, but he was not giving up that position to Josh, and they were banging wheels all the time through the second sector. Murray does come into pit, as does RJ Batten, but as we now look towards turn 4 again, no change of position so far. Joki's still in 3rd, Lovett still in 4th, and Chocky still in 5th. But on the back of this now is Mr. Jabe, who is starting to gain. Maybe the soft tyres just starting to give way a little bit, as we see VDV Ale picking up a 3-second penalty. RJ Batten and Murray Elliott both onto the hard tyres, potentially thinking about going to the end here with a 1 stop. But like you say, Lewis, the Mercedes flying out in front, but the gap is really coming down between Finn and Sean. The soft tyres starting to die.
Absolutely. Gap was about 1.7 when we came across the line watching this battle for 3rd, and about 1.4 now. So just slowly getting that gap down. This will be what Sean will be wanting at this current point. And it will be interesting to see down the main straight here, this almost 4-way battle now for 3rd. Seems to me like a DRS train being formed. We have a yellow. That, I believe, for Meldrum again. Not been the greatest of days for him. As Jabe on the back of this, but not too much. Here comes Dan Lovett down the inside into turn 1. They're going to go wheel to wheel. There is they avoid contact very, very closely, however. And Jockeys does have DRS. Yes, I believe. No, he doesn't. Neither of them do. So into turn... That makes it a little bit more difficult. Can't get that move done. And that'll be very, very much what Dan wanted. And can Chocky get on the back of this? It's very, very difficult through this part of the track as they actually make contact. And there goes Jockeys. I have no grip. Also now involved in this. Is there damage to the Red Bull? I can't say I saw some.
There is damage to the Haas car, I believe. No damage for the Red Bull, but that is not what Wiz Jokies will have wanted. And now Mr. Jade coming at Chocky. An easy move as we enter the long left-hander, and Mr. Jade up into 4th place. But what that does now is it releases Dan Lovett to try and nurse these hard tyres now, as we now do have somewhat of a battle between the leaders. The gap is coming down, neither of them with much battery, and they are very, very close to the DRS gap. Eltheniel picks up a 3-second time penalty, but Sean is starting to gain on Finn. Those soft tyres not working well as Chocky does come into the pit lane, and I have no grip, really gaining on the Aston Martin of Mr. Jabe. We saw that move about half a lap ago. He is now looking to take that position back again. Nothing doing for the Williams driver yet. But like I say, this releases Dan Lovett to try and nurse those hard tyres. About 9 seconds off the lead fight. But now we do have a fight for the lead between the two Mercedes. Will we see any team orders, or will this be a straight fight?
I think if you're these two drivers for Mercedes, you're aware that it's the first race of the season, so you need a strong start. But I don't think, as much as we discussed it earlier, I don't really think we're in the position as to where they will enforce. There isn't really a sign as to who is going to be closer to that title. So I think right now it is just fight clean and be aware that you are teammates. And as you say, Dan Lovett was able to get out of that fight down the main straight. I was watching as you were watching that. McKellar managed to get past Sergeant Devsey, so slowly climbing his way back up through the field. Be
Leader
interesting to see the
pits.
later stages.
Sorry to interrupt
What
you, Lewis.
role he can
Finn
play.
comes into the pits. Sean now inherits the lead of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and Dan Lovett can try and set after him. Mr. Jabe still under pressure from the Williams of I Have No Grip. Obviously an early pit stop for the leader, but I Have No Grip. Now to the inside, and before the corner even comes up, he moves up into the podium places, obviously with the pit stop for Finn, who was our race leader on the softs. It will be interesting to see how that strategy pans out. He has gone on to mediums. I don't know if they will last the whole way, but it will be interesting to see if he can nurse them, as we also see McKellar coming into the pit lane for a set of hard compound tyres. Who will be next to blink?
So Dan's starting to get even a little bit further away. However, these three here, Jabe, VDV, and I Have No Grip, still going at it to Aston Martin. So it should be interesting to see what goes on there, as we do have still jockeys somewhat on the back of this, not currently in DRS, as they go wheel to wheel. Jabe manages to keep hold of the position, and as that occurs, that manages to get I Have No Grip out of DRS range, so he will be smiling underneath that visor, watching that transpire. Jabe with a penalty, so now only a 3-second advantage on his teammate, and I would expect that some of these are going to head into the pits in a few laps' time, surely.
You would imagine so, as we do have an Aston
Well,
Martin
now, yeah.
coming into the pits. That's VDV Ale. He blinks and comes into the
Finn
pit
penalty.
lane. He gets a penalty, does Finn. That is huge for the lead of this race. He managed to get past Sergeant Devsey on the last lap. Is now gaining on Josh, who we know is making a comeback after that contact at turn 1. It's the same with McKellar and RJ Batten, who look to try and fight their way back up the field after not taking each other out, but massive contact at turn 1. I do believe now that the hard tyres are starting to perform. Dan Lovett is just bringing that gap down to the leader, Sean. And it is interesting to see the strategy around this track and in this Grand Prix. It is so critical to win a race. You can be as quick as you want, but if you aren't smart with your pit stops, you were never going to win a race, as Finn Joe nearly goes into the back of Josh there in his pursuit of him, and he picks up another time penalty. He manages to get the move done on the Ferrari driver, but as we take a look at the penalties now, Finn Joe has 6 seconds compared to Sean and Dan Lovett having nothing.
Does very much seem like he's nervous and excited to be in the conversation for a race win. Just needs to calm down a little bit and realize you've not won it yet, and the easiest person to mess up the win for you is yourself. One thing I have been looking at here is the gap between Dan and Finn, as we believe, well, Sean has actually extended that gap on Dan, so maybe the odds are not as good at this stage as we potentially thought. If Dan wants a chance of winning this race, when he pits, he's still going to have to gain about 10 to 12 seconds on Finn. So this is very, very interesting at the minute. Finn 19.5 seconds, or just over 19.5 seconds, behind Sean. So he should emerge in the lead.
Meldrum was again round through that tight right-hander. It is such a difficult corner to try and get right. And he now, I believe, has been lapped. There is damage on that McLaren. Meldrum is really struggling. But like you mentioned, Lewis, the strategy is going to pay dividends around here. And it will be interesting to see who has got it right.
It's definitely one of those circuits where strategy is far more important. I personally would up there not quite a more hungry, but definitely circuits somewhat like that to where strategy plays a big part. But the good balance, and I think one of the things why this circuit can provide so many great races, is not only is strategy a huge part, but there is plenty of space to make overtakes. So it is just really the best of both worlds. It does remind me somewhat of Malaysia.
Yeah, I see your point. The strategy is always key around here. There's a lot of places to overtake as we now ride on board with Jokies in the Haas. Looking to the inside of the final corner. Thinks better of a move there. He is behind BFR Chocky. They are chasing Mr. Jabe as Chocky is trying to break that slipstream,
Yellow in
but
sector 2.
nothing doing. And here we go then, on board with the Haas. Looking towards the inside of turn 1. Is he going to go for it? He just isn't able to brake late enough, but Chocky runs wide. And through turn 1, that is going to put them both wheel to wheel. DRS for the Haas. He manages to get past. And now will chase down the Aston Martin of Mr. Jabe.
And whilst we were paying attention to that, I did say yellow flag in sector 2. That was actually Jabe's teammate. So it doesn't seem like the stop there. 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane as well. And this race, after a great qualifying session, seems to be unraveling, and he retires. So not a great race for VDV. One that looked so promising, and sadly for him, has not turned out to how we would have expected.
Finn Joe is looking at a move on I Have No Grip. He could have easily gone for it in the final corner, but he wants the DRS as we see Sean now come into the pits. Dan Lovett inherits the lead, and Finn Joe makes his way back up into the podium places with the DRS ahead of I Have No Grip, and now sets the charge again on Dan Lovett. Now it's going to be interesting to see when Dan decides to pit and what tyres he decides to go on, because Finn is now 6 seconds behind him. And if Dan leaves it a bit too late, as we see a Haas going round there, and was that Wiz Jokies? It wasn't. It was his teammate Eltheniel, very wide through turn 4. Massive spin for him. Finn Joe was not caught out by that, luckily for him. But, like I say, it'll be interesting to see when Dan pits, because he is going to come out well behind our net race leader, Finn, here.
And with a 6-second penalty as well. So that throws up his chances of winning potentially in smoke. I don't think at this point he can be really focused on the win, as the Mercedes seem just that step ahead. But if there's a potential safety car, which there normally is, I would think that we've had a safety car in every race. Certainly that I've been here to cover. Somebody might want to go and check that. I believe that's right. But I think for him at this stage, he will be having to look at a P3, especially given how hard he was fighting in the early stages. I think third would be what he's going to have to expect now.
Completely agreed. Sean is making his way up the field as I Have No Grip now comes into the pits. That puts Josh into the net podium places, but Sean, after pitting last lap, is beginning to gain on the Ferrari and back up as Wiz Jokies makes his way past Sergeant Devsey, and Mr. Jabe gets past the Alpine. So the Alpine is struggling. He's been on those medium tyres since the start, and he is starting to feel the wear on those tyres. Dan Lovett, like I say, currently leading, but that gap is always dropping between himself and Finn.
Finn looks incredible speed here, and I think Dan potentially has made the wrong call.
Still quite a way to go in this race, though. Anything can happen, like you mentioned, with the safety cars and whatnot. It can get quite dicey, as we've got a massive battle here for 7th place between Sergeant Devsey, McKellar, Chocky, and I Have No Grip. All of them jockeying for position. Chocky going very wide there as McKellar makes the move on Sergeant Devsey. Now over to Chocky, who, like I say, went very wide, almost into the back of Michela there. Doesn't manage to get the move done, but Sergeant Devsey, like I mentioned about half a lap ago, is really struggling on those medium tyres. Dan Lovett again stays out for another lap. Sean makes his way into third as Josh now comes into the pit lane. And this is where we start to find out who has got it in the tank. We know that Finn has got a 6-second penalty. The gap between him and Sean is 7.8 seconds. And that gap is growing. Obviously, Sean on the hards, Finn on the mediums. Whether Finn will try and take those to the end, we will only know at the end of the race. But this is going to be incredibly interesting. With that penalty ducked, we will see what happens come the checkered flag. But Mercedes looking in prime position to win this one.
And Sean starting to gain a little bit on Finn. And that, if you go on board with Sean, actually, you can see there could be a point of concern for him here. The fuel. Has he underfueled, thinking there would be a safety car? And that could potentially backfire for him.
Well, we
As
did see
Finn,
in Qatar, sorry to interrupt you, Lewis, we saw that in Qatar where Finn in the sprint underfueled, and then that gave the win to Sean.
we saw it the other day as well. I can't remember which day, whether it was, I believe it was Sunday, no?
I can't say I recall.
We have seen that before. Finn seems good on his fuel, and here they go then. Mediums versus hards, Mercedes versus Ferrari. Not much in the battery for Finn, but that seems relatively simple. Although he does go very wide, and Dan retakes the lead. So this will be frustrating Finn, because this will be pulling Sean in. And that later stage at the race, where you would expect the mediums, especially if they're fighting for a while here, Sean will be in a very good position if Finn gets held up here to potentially snatch the win off his teammate.
I do wonder if Dan is just staying out, hoping and praying for a safety car. That is what the Ferrari driver needs, as now Finn does look to the inside, and this time it is going to be an easier move for the Mercedes driver, and he moves himself back up into the lead. Dan will most certainly fight it to try and slow him down, but the 14-lap-old hards are not going to be liking that, and they will be screaming at him all the time to come into the box to get those tyres changed. Ideally, like I say, Dan would like a safety car, but he is actually going to come back at Finn here, and surely with Finn in the non-ERS mode, yes, Dan does retake the lead.
And that gap is dropping. 5.5 now. The interesting thing, we were talking about Dan potentially staying out for a little while longer. At this current point, he should be safe to jockeys. 18-second gap between him and Sean, and then 5 seconds from Sean to Dan. So he should be safe to that. Whether he'll choose to pit now that he's lost out in position, although he's still got quite a lot of battery there, he should be safe for third at this current point. It could be close though, especially if he stays out longer fighting. That gap will drop even more, as it has already dropped another second on this lap to Sean. This is going to get very interesting in those final few laps.
The medium tyres may be starting to give way, and somehow Dan is still sticking with him. Finn does not have much battery. Dan has a fully charged battery, and as now, Finn does just manage to get out of the DRS. Is there anything that can happen? And it's dreamland for Dan Lovett as the safety car is deployed. So the dream that the Ferrari driver wanted has come true. His prayers have been answered, and surely you will see the likes of Finn dive into the pits as well. If I'm Sean, I'm diving into the pits as well to get on a set of the mediums or the soft compound tyres. But Dan Lovett is coming into the pits, and so is the race leader. And this is really going to compound the issue of the penalty as Sean stays out and takes the lead of the Grand Prix. But dreamland for Ferrari, dreamland for Lovett, who now comes into the pits for a fresh set of the medium tyres. And he is going to be in prime position to try and win this race as Finn, with the penalty, goes on to hards. So Dan Lovett will be in third place, both cars ahead of him on hard tyres. He is on the mediums. Ferrari are in a great place here as Josh, who was in the wall at turn 1, is up to 4th, also on mediums.
This is going to be a Hollywood showdown here between Mercedes and Ferrari. And if you're Sean, I think you've got to realise that surely the win has potentially slipped away. It seems like, I don't know if this is what he's doing, but it seems like he's not... Actually, no, I was on board with the wrong person there. I was going to make a point that would have been absolutely wrong. But if you're in Sean's point, surely you can't pit now because you'll drop down to 5th, 6th, 7th. You have to stay out.
Exactly.
And he wouldn't have been able to pit because Finn was in the pits as well.
Yeah, he either would have had to double stack or he's got to pit now, but surely he will want to stay out. Only 5 laps on those hard tyres, but surely the likes of Dan and Josh are better placed with the fresher rubber. Even his teammate Finn will be better placed as we see the Red Bull go off track there to let Finn through, and I'm sure he will do the same for Dan Lovett as he does, yes. And Josh, good sportsmanship here from the Red Bull driver, letting those cars through so they are free to race when the safety car comes in. But this is incredible stuff now. Dan Lovett must have been living on a prayer, as Bon Jovi once said, and that prayer has come true. Sean does elect to stay out, but surely this falls into the wings of Ferrari now. Medium tyres on both of them. And I just can't get over Josh's performance here. I mean, yes, he's been lucky with the safety car, but he was dead last in 18th at the end of lap 1, turn 1. And he has managed to carve his way through the field. And he is now exactly where he started once more. And if you need proof of how good that is, look at McKellar, who, again, was in the wall at turn 1. He's 7th. RJ Batten was in the wall at turn 1. He's only 12th. So Josh has had a great race thus far and will be looking to get himself on the podium. But if you are Finn, as much as you're on the fresher tyres than your teammate now, that penalty is really going to compound your issues. 6 seconds, I believe, in time penalties for Finn. And he is really going to struggle to try and pull out a gap like that, especially with the Ferraris on the quicker rubber.
Absolutely, and if you're Sean, what do you even do at this point? Because there isn't anything you can really do. All of those behind you, pretty much on fresh rubber. The only one on the same, or around the same tyres as you is Josh with 4 lap compared to 6. But he's on medium, so he'll have the advantage anyway.
Exactly that. Now, I'm sure that Sean won't be too worried as 6 laps on a set of hards. They're not going to be completely dead. They're not going to be incredibly slow. However, it is just looking behind him. 1 lap old hards for Finn. 1 lap old mediums for Dan. 4 lap old mediums for Josh. 1 lap old hards for Jokies. It is just going to compound those issues so much more. And a race that looked dead set for a Silver Arrows win surely now swings to the balance of Ferrari. We saw a great battle here between Red Bull and Ferrari in 2022. And it was Charles Leclerc that came out on top that day. They have not had a win at the Bahrain Grand Prix since. And Dan Lovett and Josh look to right that wrong tonight under the lights.
Absolutely, this is... You really can't call a winner here. there's a fair case for everyone, and I know we're supposed to be impartial, but I cannot see a world in which Sean wins this from this position. I think it's just as good a driver as he is. I think he just has a lot of work to do here.
I couldn't agree more. As much as, we are unbiased and we don't want anyone particularly to win or lose, if you are Sean with 7-lap-old hards on that Mercedes, you are going to be grimacing and gritting your teeth as you try and get this restart nailed as perfectly as possible.
So, surely I would expect in this lap or the next, you would imagine.
Yes, I would imagine the safety car will be in at the end of this lap. That should enable all of the drivers to have enough time to try and close up to the pack. And if you're Dan Lovett, Lewis, I will pose you a question. If you are the man currently sat in the best position, P3, 2-lap-old medium tyres, how are you feeling in that cockpit as the safety car is in this lap?
Well, you've seen that on worse tyres that you can still fight with Finn. You haven't really fought Sean in this early stage, so you're pretty confident that you can get this win. But you also need to be very careful of Josh, who is right behind you, who is no slouch, and Wiz, and even down to McKellar. This is, like I say, it's really difficult to call a winner here.
He's gone.
And here we go then.
Sean went early and Finn has stuck with him. Dan is also in there, but here comes Finn. He is deploying the battery and to turn one we go. Reminiscent of 2014. It's the Silver Arrows battle under the lights and Finn manages to get through on his teammate, but Sean is not going to give this up. And now to turn 4 we go. Who is better placed? Finn leads into turn 4. Now over to Dan Lovett as Finn goes very wide. Sean with a lot of understeer. Dan Lovett now looks best placed to try and make an overtake. Has to just get out of it there with the dirty air. There is, I believe, now a virtual safety car as we've got Eltheniel in the wall on the main straight. So it is a virtual safety car. Everyone gets the chance to harvest up those batteries once more. But a change of leader. Finn overtakes Sean crucially. And during all of that, Josh picked up a 3-second time penalty. So that is going to hurt his race. But Dan Lovett and Sean now surely are the two battling for the win.
Very interesting point to pick up of when when Sean decided to go on the mediums, that both Ferraris on the better tyres didn't really get the best reaction to stick with them there. So very, very interesting for the next safety or virtual safety car restart. Finn managing to gain a little bit of time, which can be very frustrating when you're a loser to it, but can be very beneficial when you are the gainer of it. 1.4 seconds. Dan really trying to close up on Sean here, even using the battery.
As we now go to green flag racing, Bruiser gets a drive through, and here comes Dan as well. Both Ferraris wheel to wheel. Josh thinks better of it as he sees Dan making a move on Sean. DRS will be enabled. This is a battle for the net lead, but a great exit for Sean there. And Josh is really coming at his teammate, but I maybe think there are a bit of team orders going on as Josh does just back out of it and let his teammate go. Bruiser is round just on the exit of turn 2. But like I say, Sean and Dan battling. Finn is starting to pull away. He will need a 6-second gap come the checkered flag. He is starting to pull away, but Dan Lovett is really hounding the pressure on Sean here. Medium tyres for the Ferrari, hard tyres for the Mercedes. Can he gain to try and get past? Sean is using his battery as much as he can. Dan is saving it, and that is helping the Mercedes, but surely the balance will swing back to the Ferrari. 1.6 seconds to gap between Finn and Sean. This is far from over yet, but I am on the edge of my seat, Lewis. This is incredible stuff.
Absolutely, and they're gonna have a big problem here because at the back of this, in fifth, look who's there, and more importantly, look who's coming up to them. This is by no means over, as here comes Dan now. There's a gap on the outside. Murray is out,
Safety
and
car
the safety
deployed.
car gets
Who was
called.
ahead? That's the question. I think it was Dan, and it
Dan
was
was.
Dan. Crucial for this race. Now, will we see anyone dive into the pits? They are all still very close to each other. So if you are someone like Sean, you are going to go down almost, I would believe, to about 13th place. So surely, but Dan Lovett with a 10-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. And suddenly the pendulum swings back to Sean. I can't believe it.
And that is going to hurt him massively with that safety car as well. And it turns out, I think if you were in Dan's mind, when that safety car gets called, you're probably thinking this is perfect because all I now have to do is stay in the gap. But that 10-second penalty has killed surely any chance of a victory, and more importantly, any chance of a podium. Because with how bunched up that field's going to be, you would expect until maybe lap 25, 26, he's not going to have enough time to build that gap, especially with how close they've all been. That very much is a killer. We have somebody in the chat asking how much is the penalty for Finn. It's 6 seconds. So he has a 4-second difference on Dan and no penalties for Sean or jockeys, 3 for Josh. So you would expect one of those will be right on the tail of this.
Exactly that. As will we see anyone dive into the pits? We will not. So everyone staying out. Finn will continue to lead. Dan Lovett in second. But the man who looked best placed for the victory on the mediums, 10-second penalty for ignoring yellow flags. And he is going to be screaming inside that helmet as the pendulum again, like I say, swings back into Sean's favour. And actually, Wiz Jokies has also got a very good chance of potentially taking a win here. 6-lap hold hard. So he is on better tyres than Sean. If he can try and clear Josh, that is going to be an incredible battle as both of them looking for their first race wins.
Absolutely. Everyone desperate to get that victory with how tight the field is. So right now, Sean is the one to win this. Yeah, so far, it very much looks that way.
Yeah, I mean, put it this way. Everyone's got penalties apart from Sean, Jokies and Devsy. Devsy's 13th. I'm pretty sure we can count him out. Jokies is 5th. On better tyres than Sean, but has a car in Josh, who is obviously very quick, between him and Sean. If Jokies can clear Josh early on, I would have to say that the baton is passed to Jokies to try and take this one. But as things stand under the safety car, I would imagine that Sean is better placed. There is nobody currently leading the championship. This is round 1 of season 1. So this will determine the championship order. Nobody is currently leading. So this is going to be interesting. First race of the season. As much as you're not going to be winning the championship in the first race, you can certainly put your foot down and announce your intentions to the world of this is who I am. I'm here to win. I am the man that you need to look out for. I will now quickly look in the Discord server and try and find the calendar for you, my friend, as we now look to the calendar. So today we have Bahrain. And if I am correct, I believe it then goes Barcelona, Imola, Spielberg, Montreal, Silverstone, Spa, Zandvoort, Qatar, Las Vegas. So 10 rounds of this season coming up for you, streamed live every week on this Twitch channel. So if you are new, haven't done my sort of nightly plug yet, if you are new to the channel, please do drop a follow down below. Coming soon, 7 days a week of racing action. We are doing it full time. Every single day of the week, we are bringing you racing action. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. We are going to be racing, including F1 action, F2 action, sprint races, feature races, one-shot qualies, 100% races, 50% races, 18-minute qualies, anything you can think of, NRRL is bringing you. It is the summer of racing, and we are at the forefront of it. One of the fastest growing leagues in league racing at the moment. You do not want to miss out on any of the action. So if you are new as a viewer, drop a follow down below. If you are interested in getting involved in the racing action, head to the Instagram or the TikTok, where you will find the links to the Discord where you can join up. There should be seats for this championship. We have 18 drivers racing today, which would tell me that there are 2 open seats. You say you're in the Discord chat, just drop a message to one of the owners. Ping, he's called NRRL Dan Lovett, the man currently in 2nd place in this race. He is the owner of the league and the founder. So if you give him a ping, he will get back to you when he has time and try and sort you out with a seat. But as we have the safety car in this lap, only a few laps to go. And here we are then. Finn does go, but Dan Lovett is right with him. The man that, if he wants to win this race, will need to overtake and fly away with the lead. A 10-second penalty for the Ferrari. He is unable to overtake, but Sean is right on the back of this, and he does go into the back of the Ferrari in a big snap for Sean there. And Wiz Jokies is all over the back of Josh in the Ferrari, who got a bit compounded by that. But now Michela is coming past Wiz Jokies, wheel to wheel action into turn 4. Michela has got the move done. Wiz Jokies just has to settle behind RJ Batten up to 7th. But a clean opening lap. Finn still leads from Dan Lovett, but Sean definitely best placed at the minute as Wiz Jokies losing positions.
Absolutely. And now that you have those Saubers coming through the field, obviously RJ Batten with a 12 seconds, so not going to be able to influence too much. But it is now coming alive at the end. Is Dan going to go for it here? You can see just the desperation. Not even potentially trying to win the race, but trying to get as far up the grid as he can. And he's just being held back so much. He gets through on... Or does he? They're now wheel to wheel. And this definitely isn't the first lap under the safety car that Dan will have wanted. Did he get DRS though? I think he did.
DRS will not be enabled on this lap as we've just ended the safety car period. But Josh is now coming at Sean down the inside into turn 1 using the battery. Sean brakes very, very late on those hard compound tyres, and surely that waves Josh through, and it does. The Ferrari takes 3rd place. Finn still somehow leading this Grand Prix, but Josh now up into 3rd position. Those hard tyres screaming out underneath the Mercedes, and while Josh is losing positions, while Sean is losing positions, so is Jokies. And that is really throwing the pendulum up in the air, as we just can't call it now. Finn is really well placed. If he can try and drop Sean, maybe gain on his teammate and get past. Maybe Dan Lovett can produce some team gains. But here comes Dan Lovett now towards the back of the system Mercedes and throws it down the inside. Very, very deep. And he is going to lose out to Finn and also his teammate. He went for it last second. Way too late on the brakes from Dan Lovett. And his teammate now overtakes him. And he is now under pressure from Sean. Finn running away with this one on track. But now here comes Josh. He only needs a 3-second gap to Sean to be able to win this race. Sean now manages to get past Dan and will have the DRS. Dan will also have DRS and has more battery. So this battle continues down the main straight. And Dan makes the position stick. Josh is unable to put any moves on Finn for the time being. But incredible battling between the top 4. RJ Batten manages to get past his teammate Michela, and I just don't know where to look.
It was a point I was going to make before Dan made that mistake there. Do you swap the drivers? Surely you do. A 10-second difference. And now Josh is released to try and chase after.
No, he's
Finn.
not. Dan Lovett's gone down the inside of his teammate and makes the move stick. So no team orders down at Maranello, as Dan, with obviously the better grip on the better suited tyres, threw it down the inside. A lovely move from the Ferrari driver, but all this is doing is handing the race win to Sean in the Mercedes, as Finn is going to lose out because of his penalties, as is Dan Lovett, as is Josh. Sean, who will have been expecting to fall down the order like no man's land, is now best suited as Josh picks up another penalty.
I think there's been a... Surely if you're Ferrari, how do you let this happen? I think just in typical fashion in real life Formula 1, I think they've thrown this away through strategy here. Absolutely. Because here comes Josh now, but it's pointless now because the damage is done. Sean actually overtaken by RJ Batten, so this is going to get very interesting because Finn might just hold on to that victory if Sean gets caught up with RJ Batten here. Round the outside goes the Sauber. On the switchback, can't make the move. Josh picks up another penalty, and this very much seems like frustration here.
Sean picked up a 3-second penalty, Lewis. I'm not sure where it was in the first sector, but the Mercedes driver picks up a 3-second penalty, and now Finn looks best placed. As we look at the gap to the leader, it's 2.9. And Finn only needs 3 seconds as Sean with a massive snap. And now the pendulum really swings to Finn as he's now behind RJ Batten. Michela is now going to have impotence to try and get past him. The hard tyres giving out beneath the Mercedes. And while Ferrari are throwing this away just due to their own actions, Finn is now better placed. As we look to the gap to leader again, 4.7 is the gap now between the two Mercedes, and Finn, now as we enter the final lap, looks in a very good position to try and win this race. As we now enter the final lap of the Bahrain Grand Prix, chaos all throughout, and somehow, through it all, it looks like it is going to be Finn who is going to take his maiden Grand Prix win. Dan Lovett will try and fight this one out on track. Inevitably, he is using the battery, using the DRS. Is there one last twist in the tail as he looks to the outside of the Mercedes? Just not enough grip for him, and Finn manages to stay ahead. There is one more DRS zone for him to go, but Dan Lovett not able to get past.
I'm going to have to interrupt you here because looking at the gap, Finn isn't going to win at this current point, especially if Dan fights him more. Wiz was just inside that gap. He seems to have fallen out of it now in P7. But if he can gain 5/10 here, Wiz is going to win, I believe. Gap to leader 6.5. If he can gain here 6/10 in the final two sectors, or if Finn picks up another penalty, there's still potentially another twist.
I can't believe this. It has been action all the way to the checkered flag. But Finn is out in front, and I don't believe he is going to lose that time to Wiz, as he is leading, and Dan Lovett does not have an answer for it. So the man that took pole position is now rounding the final corner for his maiden win in Formula 1. Finn wins the Bahrain Grand Prix. Dan Lovett finishes second on track, but will lose those positions to penalties. So it is Wiz that finishes in second. Michela taking the final podium position after crashing into the wall at turn 1. Sean takes 4th place. And after some interesting Ferrari strategy, it is 5th and 6th for the Scuderia.
They absolutely threw that away. I know we have to be unbiased, but me and you have both been in positions where we have had penalties and been close to winning, they absolutely threw that away, Ferrari. That is what would have been surely a win is fifth and sixth. That is just, I still cannot believe that they didn't work somewhere because, and that is very interesting. If you're Josh, knowing that you had that win practically in the bag and Dan didn't let you just get on with it, what does that mean for the team dynamic for the rest of the season? Because if I'm Josh in that position, I'm not going to give any help back.
Exactly that. But there are your race results then. Finjo wins a chaotic season opener here in Bahrain and will inevitably take the championship lead, with Joki's finishes in second after a very consistent race, penalty free. Michela, like I say, after being in the wall on the exit of turn one on lap one, manages to recover for a podium. Sean finishes in fourth with the Scuderia Ferraris in fifth and sixth. A horrible day, especially teamwork wise, for the prancing horse. BFR Chocky finishes in seventh with Falca Warrior in eighth. The Aston Martin of Mr. Jabe in ninth. Sergeant Devsey in 10th. RJ Batten in 11th. I Have No Grip in 12th. Paul Codd in 13th. Meldrum 14th with Bruiser 15th. Murray Elliott, Altheniel and VDV Ale failing to reach the flag. Well, an incredibly chaotic Bahrain Grand Prix and a wonderful season opener. Lewis, thank you for joining me in the commentary box. Unfortunately now, I'm on holiday, so I won't be back till next Sunday, a week on this coming Sunday. I hope that makes sense. So there will be a few new commentators coming to you, but obviously the same as you would with me, give them all your support, tune into all the streams. Like I say, if you aren't following already, do drop a follow down below, because from next week we will have 7 days of racing action coming to you every night at either 7 or 8 p.m. British Standard Time. We will have racing action for you. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. My name has been Jack. I will see you in a week's time. NRRL will see you tomorrow for Friday, 100% division. Take care.